the first aspect of the show production that I think we all want to talk about is the music. Ramin Djawadi's music. And here to talk with us about... Thanks for the music, Eliana. Here to talk with us about the music is Sam, our resident music man.
Yes. Music.
Nice. Good job. We did it. We did it, too. We recorded the segment.
Ramin Djawadi is the show's excellent composer, and instead of just providing incidental and atmospheric music without much in the way of continuity, he uses multiple motifs and themes. Musical motifs, or leitmotifs, are musical phrases repeated throughout a piece in association with a particular person, place, organization, or whatever else. Some famous ones a lot of people will know are the Shire motif from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. You know, the...
Yeah.
The Force theme, you've heard it enough. The Force theme from Star Wars, you know when Luke looks at the binary sunset, and it was played all the time in Force Awakens as well. Da, 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 da. Leitmotifs are used less in Hollywood these days, as a lot of films are trending toward just more less distinct atmospheric stuff. But they still pop up. One that was quite acclaimed, it was the Wonder Woman motif established in Batman v Superman and then carried across to the Wonder Woman movie, which is that electric cello going... I
like that.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the best part of the movie.
They tend to suit film series and television better than individual films because the longer the runtime, the more chance the composer gets to iterate and develop on the themes and associate them with more and more things. Ramin Djawadi has talked about how in season 1 he held off on a lot of themes because he didn't want to overwhelm anyone. So you can imagine in a 10-hour unit compared to a film's 2-hour unit how difficult it is to establish these kind of associations for so many things.
Okay, this is helpful. I like this.
But that was the main theme. Definitely the most recognizable since it blares out at the start of every single episode of the show. Sometimes the rhythmic march-like bit, which I didn't play, which is like the dun 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 dun, is repeated in a lot of different cues. A lot of the White Walker stuff uses that, but the melody cropping up is always more noticeable because it's a melody. It's much more catchy, and it recurs in a lot of big dramatic moments, like partway through The Light of the Seven in the season 6 finale. In the season 1 finale, when it cuts to credits, and in a lot of other moments. And of course, it's recognizable because people are so attuned to it since it plays, how many episodes do we have? 60? You hear it at least 60 times at this point.
The main theme also has a great aspect to it where it starts out in minor chords and then immediately transitions to like an uplifting major version of the same chords and then goes back into doing the rest of the theme.
I do love how it ends on the C major. Yeah,
I think it gives it that suitably epic quality, right? I mean, it's that fantasy series that it needs.
Yeah, funny thing, for as fantasy as the music is, D&D told Djawadi specifically to not use flutes because he said they both thought they were too Tolkien-y, they were too Lord of the Ringsy.
Yeah.
People would think
That's an interesting thing.
That is interesting, yeah. I kind of agree with them on that. Like, if you want to differentiate yourself from Lord of the Rings, yeah, don't use flutes.
I think if you were having a special theme for like Sept and Ray or like small folk, I think a flute would kind of help with that. But because the show doesn't go much into the small folk of the show, you don't really get that aspect.
By, Sept and Ray season 6 or whatever, I think the show's earned the goodwill that they're allowed a little bit of flute would have been fine. But in season 1 especially, they leaned very hard on, the drums with the Dothraki and everything and the cellos and all that.
The what? The Dothraki?
You know, the
Dothraki Tiki.
I would drink that. That sounds like a great
how does George pronounce it? He says
Dothrakai. And George is wrong.
Yeah.
I know it's his story, but he's objectively wrong.
I hate how he says Stannis.
Toman.
Oh, that makes it even worse. Sorry, we're detracting from Sam's intelligence.
Theme number 2, the Stark theme.
It almost has a very folksy quality to it without the flute.
Very melancholy, too.
It sounds better on
Yeah.
the scratchy violins it's normally played on instead of a guitar, because then, it really goes for the tears.
Yeah, very much.
I love the Stark theme.
My favorite use of that in the show is when they first approach for the Red Wedding, and like they're approaching the Frey Towers, and you hear it swell, and I think that really adds to the moment as to like the build up to that Red Wedding. Also, when Robb appears out of the woods after capturing Jaime, and like Kat and Roderick are sitting on their horses, like waiting, and that really like captures the epic feel of it without having to go through like the whole battle of the Whispering Wood and seeing like Jaime fight Robb and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's one way with like when season 1 was lower budget that the music really helps capture that feel that they're going for.
I do like it though too. There's two other instances where the Stark theme is played where I think is done extremely well, and the first one comes from the opening for season 4, the two sword sequences where the Stark theme bleeds into the Lannister theme, which I think you're going to talk about a little bit later. I thought was really, really cool. I used to listen to that a lot. And then the other one was in season 6, the transition from Lyanna, Ned, and Baby Jon to Jon King in the North. Like that transition was awesome.
Well,
yeah.
At the same time, I wonder if it wasn't better that they would have used the Targaryen theme that Dany has at that moment.
Yeah.
Or if they mixed them.
It kind of undercut the reveal to just have he's a Stark, instead of he's a Targaryen.
Yeah.
To be suggested by the music. No, I agree with you, definitely.
That's true, but they have really de-emphasized Rhaegar a lot.
Yeah.
The theme really works in that moment as to how it transitions to that moment, and there's like a real strong build up in the scene where like little Baby Jon is like opening his eyes and it's like da 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 like that.
Yeah.
But if it would have transitioned into the Targaryen theme.
Well, they also haven't established his
Would
father.
have been too on the nose for the reveal for them though.
But it's also the Targaryen theme at this time. The Targaryen theme has more like ethnic like horns and stuff associated with like what we would expect in the Middle East with Dany.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't know. It could have also been something that they changed later on in like editing, where they may have like initially like looked to do more of Jon, Dany like Targaryen theme, but they figured it wouldn't work. And so
the Stark theme works so well to build into that. Like it works really well in that micro sense of like moving from Baby Jon to the King in the North scene. The Targaryen thing would have been good in the macro sense, maybe, to talk about his parentage, but really just in the context of scene to scene transition, it's a nice use of the motif.
In terms of storytelling, we aren't really we've kind of like talked about Rhaegar here and there, but they haven't established in that scene yet that Jon's father is Rhaegar. They don't even like really talk about it much. The only thing that's really revealed at that moment is that Lyanna is his mother. So it doesn't.
And Ned is his father.
Apparently, some people interpreted it that way.
Oh,
well, how else are you supposed to on that? We'll get into this later.
My other thoughts on that would just be some other big tragic occurrences of the theme would be when Ned killed Lady, when Robb was crying to a tree about his dad dying.
You make it sound funny.
And the most tragic thing of all, whenever there's a Winterfell establishing shot.
Saying they overuse it.
I'll leave you to.
I caught Sam.
That one's up to our interpretation.
All right. Yeah. And then there's air quotes Littlefinger's theme. I'll get into the air quotes after we hear it. Now,
similar.
I'm calling it the Littlefinger theme here in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is I think this is what makes it more interesting than a theme like the Stark theme, because what that motif was associated with wasn't clear at first, and I think it was a case of Javadi iterating it over time. Because when we hear it in Season 1, it's used like a general Lannister theme. It plays when Kat receives a letter from her sister. That led to the escalating Stark-Lannister tensions. And then in Season 2, it kind of broadens out to be a more general conspiracy theme. It plays when Euron, Gendry, and Arya sneak down away from the Lannisters at the end of the season 2 premiere. And then in season 3, its big moment is during Littlefinger's "Chaos is a ladder" speech. And from then on in the show, it's used more like a Littlefinger theme, which I think is really cool because it retroactively associates Littlefinger with that scene in season 1 where Cat receives his sister's letter.
That's smart.
And then that's Littlefinger all along.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent connection.
And then I
Do you
think
think that's intentional? Do you think it's intentional?
not at all. I talked about this in a thread months ago. I don't think there was any chance because it was used in all sorts of other situations that have had nothing to do with Littlefinger. But I think it fit really well. It was very serendipitous in that way when they used it for him. And I don't think it ever worked right as a Lannister theme anyway, because the Lannisters' favourite type of music would have to be casterly rock.
Oh, I get it.
Oh my
You should
god.
have said
Oh
Casterly
my
Rock
god.
and Roll, and
Wow.
then we would have really gotten it.
Casterly Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a good example of where the theme was initially used in a different spot and then became more of something that really helped work. There is one other theme that I think that they overused it in a way that was somewhat inappropriate, and that's you don't have it on the list here, but it's the Greyjoy theme for Theon Greyjoy. Well, not Theon's main theme, but he has a secondary theme that's called Pay the Iron Price, where it captures this aspect of like the swelling of the ocean, and it's got a very like a person on a ship that's in the middle of a vast ocean and he's lost. And I think that really works in Theon's aspect of his story where he like beheads Roger Castle and the music plays really loudly.
It became like a general beheading motif, yeah.
You hear it again when Robb beheads
Rickard Karstark.
Yeah, and then you hear it again
Yeah.
when Jon beheads Janos Slynt. And it's kind of like they've undercut this theme in ways that when they come back to needing to have a theme for Euron, it like becomes almost comical because they can't go back to it as well. And Euron's theme, I think, is like one of the lesser themes. Hopefully they change it. If you place Pay the Iron Price over that scene, it seems to fit almost with the exact cut like it was originally cut to be used at that moment, but then it was replaced later with his coronation music, which is, I would say, the worst piece in the show.
Yeah.
Its
Absolutely.
main notes are da 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 da, but that's sad trombone music. That's like note for note sad trombone, like wah 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 wah.
So I always thought Euron's theme was just like, you know, yo ho, a pirate's life from.
There's a track on, I think it's season 3 soundtrack called Reek, where it does like the Theon theme you like so much in a really like jaunty style when Theon's getting chased on the horse when he's like done the escape that Ramsay let him do. It sounds just kind of funny how the like how the rolled it up
like a Bonanza theme song.
Cover,
yeah,
like a Benny Hill version of the theme song.
yeah, go on of the swelling waves.
I think this is really like how Littlefinger's theme, as we're calling it, kind of does retroactively work, but then something like Theon's theme, the way it's used ends up kind of maybe diminishing it.
I was listening to the Littlefinger one, and I actually thought it would be Varys's because it kind of...
It feels crawly. Yeah, same.
I don't know, I got like the image of a spider. Yeah.
I wish every character could have an individual one.
Can't tell if am I being condescended to?
No, not at all. I really thought that'd be neat. The spider thing, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's crawly and slow and deliberate, and that's not Littlefinger. Littlefinger's chaotic. That's Varys.
I mean, Littlefinger's theme should just be improvisational jazz, I think.
Or math rock.
Yeah.
Or like slam poetry.
Yeah, that too.
The other big theme that I think changed over time was what now? I know Javadi calls it the Arya theme. I thought of it as more of a Bravos theme, but it's first played in the pilot when Bran's climbing everywhere, and it's like continuously plays in that episode, like to do with Bran. But then as the show goes on, it gets associated with Jaqen and Arya and Bravos.
Oh wow, yeah.
Do 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 do.
It's great. It's
Do,
yeah.
do, do, do.
They play it on a hammered dulcimer now, and it just sounds lovely. It's one of the greatest instruments I think the show uses.
Is that the instrument that he's using in that video
Yes,
on Facebook?
Yep.
Okay, that's cool.
the one that he it's like tapping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hammer dulcimers
Yeah.
are dope. Yeah.
We'll put a link to this video.
Yeah, what's another theme for us, Sam?
I'd call this one the Iron Throne theme, although I've had people tell me it would be more accurate to call it the Baratheon theme. And it goes a little something like this.
Wow, this is really abstract.
Do you remember this? This is the King's Arrival.
When Bran is first looking out over the battlements and sees the Baratheons coming? Yeah.
Yeah,
Guys,
exactly.
I don't remember any of these songs from the show.
Well, Robert dies really quickly, and then you don't hear it until, like, I think Joffrey's wedding again, it's played. And Tommen, yeah.
You hear it later in season 1 when Joffrey's charming Sansa, and it's got that shot with like the sun, and he gives her the necklace. There's a lovely arrangement of it there. I forget the name, but it's on the season 1 soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
You hear it in the season 2 premiere, that Littlefinger theme, which plays in the closing shot, then segues in the credits into that Iron Throne royalty Baratheon theme.
Oh, cool.
And then, yeah, there's the choral version with Tommen. Yeah, it's a lovely theme. Sounds very royal, fits in its ideas very well. And I like that it's not 100% clear what exactly it's meant to be associated with, whether it's royalty in general, the Baratheons in general, like with Gendry, but then why is it with Joffrey? Like, I think it's fun with these cues to try and work out what exactly the composer's trying to suggest with them.
Yeah, totally. It does have this great royal feel to it. Like you hear it and you're like, okay, yeah, the king's entering the room. Totally, I get that.
It really does, though. It does.
Yeah.
It sounds like something you hear at a Ren fair. Maybe it's supposed to be more authentic to, the music of the time, I guess.
I would have liked to hear this more merged with Stannis' theme as the show went along, and it became more prominent that Stannis was becoming the, like, one true heir to Robert, rather than just guy who's trying to attack Dragonstone. As he becomes, like, more, I wouldn't say noble, but more less evil Stannis, more like core to being a good character, and like merging that in with his original theme when he's attacking Blackwater. I think that would have been more neat, but yeah, we don't get that.
I would have worked with like the Baratheon angle too, if that was the direction they're going for with the theme.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
Like
much
this
agree.
character is becoming more kingly, more like he's but they don't go with that angle in the show at all. He just like walks down to Winterfell and dies. But like if he was, say, going to like the House Wool and stuff and the mountain clans to the north and like rallying an army and his theme transformed, I think that would have been really neat.
Well, that transitions
Here.
very neatly into Stannis' theme in general.
I wonder what they're trying to convey here.
Sadness.
It sounds a little bit
Well,
like when the wolf
you know,
comes in Peter and the Wolf. That's sort
Aw.
of the...
It sounds like a daughter burning. It's weird.
Back in the day, back post season 1, pre-season 2, 2011, 2012, I was so excited for the show's version of Stannis, and I was so keen on what their interpretation of him would be, what his song would be like, and then he ended up being what he ended up being. And I was very taken aback at how villainous and ominous his motif was. It was quite jarring to me. And then I thought, I'm just going to look forward to when Javadi's going to transpose it into a much more triumphant, joyful cue for that moment when he saves the wall. And then they just played the same old ominous, scary version over it, which, definitely set a different tone than I took from the book in that scene.
Well, the Dance of the Dragons theme that's played at the end of Stannis' arc is, in my opinion, I think it's the best motif the show used, because they do use that Baratheon or that Stannis theme, but they also mix in other, I can't remember what other themes they bring into it.
They use the Bolton associated theme though
Yep.
for that moment more than Stannis' theme, because the Boltons kind of get their own theme at that point. It's very small. And I don't even really remember it, but I remember it from that moment. And that's like when you see the horses rising over the distance. It's the Bolton-esque theme more than Stannis.
Yeah. The Bolton's theme, I think it first cropped up when Roose legitimized Ramsay, and then they used it kind of sparingly until season 5 and season 6, yeah.
300 miles this way, 400 miles that way, 500 miles, yeah.
That's the one.
I gotta say, Sam, I really agree with you on like the scene where Stannis charges in at the wall and saves everybody. The music there just disappointed me a lot because... Yeah, in the books, you read it and you're like, oh, wow, it's Stannis. All right, great.
It's really swelling in the books, too, because George is, like, painting it as, like, John's hearing outside, Stannis, and it's very triumphant, and, like, the savior has come, but they're, like, all standing around, like, outside, wondering, like, what the heck is going on, and then, like, you in the show, you see the smoke clear, and then you see, like, do, 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 and it's like, what?
Dreadful.
Yeah, very very spooky.
It could have been cool to use the Baratheon or the Robert theme there, right? I mean, that's probably what they should have opted for.
That would have been
that
awesome.
been...
Can someone re-edit that?
Especially because John initially thinks it's Robert. He's like,
yeah,
it's Robert, it's King Robert. Oh my God,
it's Robert, come again.
He sees the stag on the banners first, right? And then
he doesn't understand the fire and the heart.
Hold up.
Hold up.
Oh man, so wow, I'm glad we're fan soundtracking.
You know, another very ominous musical cue is The Reigns of Castamere.
I don't think I know that one. Can you can someone give me a few bars?
I also like the moment in the show when Bronn sings that, and like the show's created moment between him and Sandor at Blackwater.
It was a cool way they did that, yeah.
I wonder if, because the theme was developed for season 2 in that way, that's part of why the thing that became the Littlefinger theme was shunted off from the Lannisters.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I remember about season 2 about the Reigns of Castamere theme is that it was first whistled by Tyrion in the first episode.
That's right.
Then sung by Bronn in the Blackwater episode, and then finally the National did the version of it that closed out Blackwater, which is the greatest episode of Game of Thrones that's ever been produced.
Agreed.
Uncontroversial.
I would say The Reigns of Castamere is probably the most well-known song, right? It's gone further than any of the others.
And they know it, too. I mean, they...
Yeah, I think the show overplays it. I remember when, the post-rock band CROs were announced for season 4, I thought their style's going to match The Last of the Giants so well. This is going to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that would have been good.
And then they just played The Reigns of Castamere again.
Yeah.
And then, it crops up so much. I love it. It's a great track, but it's like there's that whole meme of like a Game of Thrones episode ending and then it just playing that song as the credits because it feels like it's happened so many times.
Yep. Now, speaking of playing a song at the credits, there was one that I wanted to bring up with the music. The Bear and the Maiden Fair, as done by the Hold Steady. Which,
so good.
Yeah. That was honestly probably one of my favorite cuts to credit in the entire series, just because of how over the top and ridiculous that was.
I remember the really funny thing when that happened was all the initial pirated rips of the episode had a fault in the audio, and so that track started playing about 2 minutes before it was meant to. So when they start pushing Jaime down on the stump, it starts playing, and you don't hear the scream or anything. And I saw all these comments complaining. And then I saw some comments praising this brave stylistic choice of, breaking the immersion to communicate how distraught Jaime was. And it was just, a complete flaw.
I have a different version of the Bear and the Maiden Fair based on the book, not the notes that they give us. It's just more like a bear, and not very tonal, but...
There's a guy on YouTube who did all the book songs in his own style. I'd have his name written down somewhere because I don't know the MP3s. But he did a really good take on all of them. That was like in a folksy
We'll link it.
style.
We'll link it.
Yeah, is it the one where it's like, Oh, come, they said, come to the fair. The fair said he, but I'm the bear, all black
Yes,
and brown
I've
and
heard
heard
cold.
that.
Yeah.
Might be that, yeah.
I think
know
I've heard that one. Yeah.
That one's really good. Yeah,
I've heard
I
that
like that
version
one.
too. That's really good.
He has a different range of Castamere too, which is interesting since the show one is such an earworm.
It's so dominant,
To hear
yeah.
another take on it.
Yeah, it's funny because really, of the book songs, George gives us quite a few, but we've really only heard majorly The Bear and the Maiden Fair and Reigns of Castamere. We got a bit of The Dornishman's Wife, just as did the singer of that song, am I right? But, hey-oh.
Whoa!
The other song, obviously, that we're missing is The Last of the Giants, which you already brought up. And the great thing about The Last of the Giants is it can also be sung to I think it's the Mexican hat dance, if I remember right. For I am the last of the giants. If you
Never pictured that.
yeah.
I hope all these songs make it to the final cut of this.
So I always have this image in my head of, Ygritte in the show, like sitting down and like they're at, a campfire at night and she like leans in close to Jon. And then like a mariachi band steps out from behind a rock and goes, oh, I am the last of the giants. My people are over here. The last of the great mountain giants.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a really sad song. You got a Mexican mariachi band singing to it, like shaking maracas and like all the screamers going. Yeah.
There's like one of those wailing trumpets,
Maybe Mance Arthur Dane Rhaegar brought the mariachi band up from Dorne.
Oh, man.
They'll like rip off their
as the last notes of the song ring out.
they rip off their like free folk clothes and they're just like yeah.
Anyway, so that's just a fun factoid.
This is why I hated the Night's Watch because they got rid of my mariachi red outfit. It's part of that group.
Made me throw my sombrero away.
So
You wouldn't let me wear my sombrero.
Bron's. The other song that's missing from Game of Thrones, I think for the most part, is The Dornishman's Wife. Unless, am I remembering correctly?
Yes,
that
Bronn sings it in season 5 while they're approaching the Water Gardens.
A couple bars, yeah.
Yeah, he sings, and then he sings it again, I think, later to Tyene, and then she gets all like, oh, yeah, I love your singing, Bronn. You got such a sexy voice there, Bronn.
Then something about an evil cat?
Close. Very close, Matt. Yeah.
Close. Yeah. That's what I interpreted it as.
You want the Dornishman's wife, but you get the reigns of Castamere again.
Jeff, no! Come back!
He's choking on his wine.
Oh,
Where's
God.
the pigeon pie?
Yeah.
Or the poison ivy lips from Dorne.
Don't worry, there's dualism. We'll bring him back to life.
It is Poison Ivy from Batman, isn't it?
It is. I really like
yeah.
that scene, though. Batman and Robin.
That one stuck with me when I was a kid. Yeah.
Me too.
Now that we cut to like credit ending scenes, I want to bring up my favorite one is the one where Shireen sings Patchface's like thing. I think that's really eerie and creepy.
Oh.
There's always
that was
someone
great.
sing.
Yeah.
What's that one sound like? Someone sing it for me.
It's always summer under the sea. I know.
Oh.
What's her name?
Carrie Ingram.
Carrie Ingram. She sung also in Doctor Who. Well, not in Doctor Who, but the like orchestrated live version that they did in London or wherever a couple years back. Wake Up.
The Rings of Akaton.
Oh, that's right.
Rings of Akaton, and that is
Series
so
7B.
like perfect.
That's an amazing
for that moment.
What a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, she's really great at that.
Carrie Ingram, who is at Con of Thrones, which
Yes.
We didn't
Big
go
shout
to.
out to Carrie Ingram, who I met while I was at Con of... No, I didn't go to Con
We
of
met in
Thrones.
spirit.
Just kidding.
The Doctor Who episode was great until Matt Smith ruined it by yelling at a star for a while.
What?
Oh, I love that speech.
Oh, spoilers.
Wow, it's terrible.
Spoilers.
That song, Rip. Yeah, don't worry.
Oh, they help me with Dogs in the Daylight.
We will march into the sea and out again, and the mermen will both cease to shout are coming.
Oh my god.
This isn't an original thought, but someone pointed this out to me once. But now I can't help but imagine George R. R. Martin doing that intentionally with The Last of the Giants, like sort of in his head, like, "I'm the Last of the Giants." Da, 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 da.
I would be intrigued to hear like what they sound like inside of his head.
Yeah.
That's what. How has no one asked him that at a con?
Yeah.
Sam.
Next time he's here.
Or you can just come here. Worldcon.
Yeah.
There's one in Helsinki, but I don't think I'll make it to that one. I would go to the one in San Diego in 2018.
Last motif, or the last music.
The Last of the Giants.
Yeah, music. I wanted... That's what it's called, right? Sounds in that order. Music I wanted to talk about was Light of the Seven, a track that garnered tons and tons of attention, partly because it's quite different from the show's usual music, partly because it was a long track, quite long, 7 minutes I think, that let the episode focus on the music without the dialogue or much else covering it, and partly just because it's a really damn good cue. And it marks the first appearance of piano in the show's score, and Raymond Javadis talked about how the instrument's appearance that hadn't appeared in the show before was meant to be intentionally jarring so as to cue viewers that there's something not right with what's going on screen, which was of course Cersei's, dastardly plan. And then, as it's a long track and it slowly builds up and adds instruments and iterates on itself, it matches the escalating tension of the scene, with the young boys singing coming on when the little birds appear on screen, and the organ ramping up as the tension gets higher and higher, then the orchestra and the main theme motif finally entering at the end right before the big explosion.
It's very, very well... I don't think the show did anything like that before, linking the track so closely to what's happening on screen.
Very different style.
That song is that entire 7 minutes of Game of Thrones, almost entirely. For
7 minutes, 1 minute for each god, for each of the faith of the 7
minutes.
Is that how long it is? Exactly.
No,
I don't know, you just said it was 7 minutes.
9 minutes, 50 seconds.
I was going to say that the 7 are basically the horoscopes of Westeros. I mean, it's these archetypes you can slap on anything.
I mean, now you have 84.29 seconds per god.
That's all I need.
Maybe not a perfect minute, but...
It's also used so sparingly in there with so little dialogue that it's very striking and creepy and eerie as an instrument itself. Because you've had these strings before all the time, swell and build and be stroked. But now you're striking them with a hammer, as a piano does, and it creates a very striking feeling towards the audience, or some bullshit I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it is. I
don't know.
I was going to say, but if we're talking about hammers, what about Arya? But Arya has the little hammer.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Gendry.
Instrument.
Oh yeah, the dulcimer.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's a difference in the hit, because strings resonate more than a solid block of wood or metal, and that where it's yes.
They resonate quite a lot more than this, which has no resonators on it, for the record, because it's a travel marimba, so it just sounds very dull.
And you've also got the two boys in there singing the theme as well, which their voices blend and almost contrast, and they go semi-flat in some ways that makes it more eerie, but then they come back into tone. It's very, very subtly, but it creates this very eerie sense to that moment. Also works well with having the little birds in the scene. For sure.
And the church focus in general, because you know how church choirs little boys and all that.
And the organs too.
Yeah, no, it definitely does evoke that sort of cathedral feel.
The one thing I've argued with this, well, no, I shouldn't say I've argued with the users about this, although I have, but I've argued with the users about this because their opinions are really wrong.
Edgelord.
It's when they go, the piano was so anachronistic, the show, jumped the shark musically. On TV tropes, they have a thing called the coconut effect, which is when an unrealistic, anachronistic element is so widely accepted in pop culture that people think it's the real thing, and they get mad when it's not in there. Like when the horse hooves that are two coconuts being plopped against each other. Horses only sound like that on cobblestone. Yeah. But so many shows, like Monty Python did the whole thing about it, put that for horses who went anywhere. Or when swords get drawn from their scabbards, they don't swing.
Yeah.
Because the movies and games always use it. The show's music has always been anachronistic since the first minute of the show, where it has all those synth sine waves going on, and it has the synth strings in the intro. Computer generated noises happen all the time. There's a didgeridoo that plays the wildling motif, and the show isn't taking place in any time. There's no chron for the anachronistic. It's not in our history. there are no Australian Aboriginal people in the show, so how is there a didgeridoo there? Why isn't that getting the complaints? It's a really good piece of music, and I find it just bizarre to try and invalidate it because it's an instrument not there. But since literally the first minute of the show, there's been instruments not there. There aren't computers in Westeros. How are they getting sine waves happening?
Right. Yeah.
So
I think you're right, Sam, and I think there are many people out there who are wrong.
Yeah.
And one by one, we will
destroy them.
Having the organ and the piano there really echoes the church sense that they're trying to capture in this moment with the Great Septa Baelor, and so it adds into the moment. I mean, yes, the piano was not around. The harpsichord came for. Have we heard the harpsichord on the show?
Harpsichord?
No, because it sucks.
God
What's
damn, son, what do you got against the harpsichord? Jesus.
I genuinely do think that the harpsichord can only work for like certain TV shows soundtracks, though, with a very specific period. Not historically, it fits with a lot of things, but I think culturally, it just evokes like Victorian women in drawing rooms for whatever reason. That's the harpsichord.
Jane Austen type stuff.
Yeah, Jane Austen kind of stuff. So, and that's not historically accurate, but that's the sense of it.
It's like the flute thing. Yeah, it has an association so strong that it would create connections in viewers' minds you might not want.
Right.
Connotations.
That's what I mean.
Musically.
Yeah, thank you.
It's also a bad instrument.
Right. It sucks. It sucks.
It doesn't sustain the tone, so you like have to have another like orchestra behind it for whatever you're playing. Like whereas the organ and the piano, like it detons, but it like hums and keeps going.
Lovely
Harpsichord
tried.
plucks and then it dies.
For the Light of the Seven, didn't they also use that in the last trailer?
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yes.
And that's sort of you could say that as like Cersei's explosion and killing all those people was still echoing forward. Like they're all under the shadow of that explosion still as that trailer's going on.
Well, and they really, I mean,
cool.
It's also
it's such a good piece of music, and it's so now there's so much emotion wrapped into it because of the season 6 finale that they kind of had to use it for a trailer at some point, because immediately as soon as those notes start up, you're like, oh wow, yeah, Game of Thrones, wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of the time, these trailers as well, they use interchangeable trailer park music that they have like on a dolly, and this is one way where they can actually use Game of Thrones music without having to go back to a different theme. Like I know the theme for HBO's The Pacific. One of the trailers uses the theme from Stardust later on in the show. It's true. It's true.
I'll have to look that up.
It does work in the motion of the trailer, but yeah. So here they can tie it right back into the show without having trailer park music.
I remember the first
works.
trailer for Man of Steel. The music was the music when Gandalf died.
Was the music when
From Lord of
Gandalf
the Rings.
died?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
The Bridge of
that's
Khazad-dûm.
hilarious.
It's also like Light of the Seven is the next most, I think, iconic song, partially because of it was so recent, but the next most iconic song from Game of Thrones just because it like was so different from the other ones.
Yeah.
Because of the piano, aside from like the theme song, and you're not going to use like the theme song in a trailer. It's an interesting like diversion, and it stands out to me from other trailers that I remember that like tend to use other songs from artists. Like, you know, we had David Bowie's Heroes, and then
Sit Down, that one.
the Sit Down, and then there was another one that I forget.
Oh, I believe it was Hot
it
Potato
had-
by the Wiggles.
Yes. Yes, and it was about how musical chairs
Yes.
and the Iron Throne,
Thank you.
and it was a symbolism about the Iron Throne and musical chairs.
That's a real trailer. You can look that up, everybody. No, you can't.
Yes.
It doesn't exist. Well, that was a lot. We said a lot of words about music. That was
Yes. Music.